Welcome to the channel. I'm Hayes. I talk movies all day. Sometimes I'll talk about games, so subscribe right now if you want to be entertained. And today I want to talk about Yasuke. Now this is going to be a review, so I'm not going to get into like spoilers and plot details and that whole thing, but I might still say some things that you might not want to hear if you haven't watched the series, so yeah, bear that in mind. So Yasuke is an anime series by Netflix. It's based on a true story. However, what is actually known of the real Yasuke is, well, there's some documentation about him being a slave and becoming a samurai and his time spent with Nobunaga in the 16th century. And there's some other accounts that have been noted over the years as well, but record keeping back then wasn't really that good. So a lot of it is maybe it happened, maybe it didn't. So with this series, it's hard to say which parts were real and which parts aren't real, but I'm going to go on a limb and say that anything that involved robots, magic, superpowers, shape-shifting mutants were probably true. Those bits were probably true. But for real though, there was one bit that was mentioned on the Today I Found Out channel, and it's also depicted in the series where when Nobunaga meets Yasuke, he thought that he was dirty and ordered him to be washed, and then was surprised when the dirt didn't come off. Upon further questioning, he finds out that he wasn't dirty, he was born with black skin. Now, as much of a piss take that comes across as, I can believe that to be true. Anyway, the main story is that there's this little girl with magical powers, and as her powers grow, she's getting sick and needs to be taken to this special doctor, and Yasuke is asked to take them to the doctor in his boat. He says no at first, but then remembers some chick that he used to fancy and also killed, and then decides, yeah, maybe I should take this girl to see this doctor after all. So yeah, it's pretty much the babysitting mission from any video game. Like if you played any game that has a babysitting mission, excuse me, an escort mission where you have to take some kids somewhere and look after them, that's pretty much the plot of this show. In fact, I'll say it's very similar to The Mandalorian. If you've seen The Mandalorian, yeah. The show also spends quite a lot of time going back and forth in Yasuke's life. So you see the parts of his life where he met Nobunaga, was taken in by Nobunaga, trained and fought with the other samurai. You also see the problems that Nobunaga had when trying to unify Japan and some of the things that led to his men betraying him, which pretty much comes down to racism and sexism. Nobunaga had a black samurai and a female samurai, and some of the other guys didn't like that very much. In fact, there's a scene where they're approaching one of their enemies and one of them says, "We are Nobunaga's 7 samurai." And then the enemy replies, "I only see 5 samurai." He was less mad at the fact that Nobunaga sent samurais after him than the fact that one of them's a woman and one of them's black. But this is part of the culture at the time, and I appreciate it didn't try to water it down for the sensibilities of modern day audiences. Sometimes the truth sucks, but it's the truth. By the way, I'm guessing that when they said that we are Nobunaga's 7 samurai, that was supposed to be a reference to the film 7 Samurai by Akira Kurosawa. Also, at some point the name Hattori Hanzo gets mentioned, and I thought that was a reference to Sonny Chiba's character from the Kill Bill movies and the Shadow Warriors TV show. But it turns out Hattori Hanzo is actually a real person from around that time, so yeah, it's probably just that. And granted, this one's a bit of a stretch, but there was a part when one of the characters says, "Free your mind," which just felt to me like it was supposed to be a reference to the Matrix. And this one, even more of a stretch. There's a part where Daimyo says to the doctor, "This is only your first visit to the astral plane. I was molded by it." Which kind of sounds a little bit Dark Knight Rises. Just saying. Anyway, forgetting the fact that it's based on a true story, or loosely based on a true story, or loosely based on a story that may or may not be true, and just looking at it purely as a piece of entertainment, there's only a couple of things that I falter on. Firstly, the theme music, I wasn't feeling it. And it wasn't so much that it was a bad song, it was actually a pretty decent song. I just felt like it didn't fit the show. And the funny thing about that is that the theme music is actually composed by one of the producers. To me, it just felt a little bit out of place, and it certainly doesn't ruin the show. It's also kind of funny that the one time Netflix doesn't offer the skip theme music button is the one time I didn't particularly like the theme music. Such is life. Also, at times it did feel like the story was skipping around just a little bit, but it never got to the point where it just felt confusing. Like, you understand what's going on, you understand how they got to where they are, but maybe 1 or 2 action sequences got skipped, and yeah, it's kind of noticeable. But the action that is in it is pretty damn good. The blood splatter, the violence, it is Also like the fact that it does go into the fantasy realm as well, with the magic and the robots and the mutants, the superpowers and all that, because it's not really trying to be an accurate depiction of what actually happened. And especially when you consider that so little is actually known about what happened, you're gonna have to make stuff up anyway. I mean, I kind of look at it like all those King Arthur stories. Like, you know, the dude weren't really fighting no dragons and witches and warlocks and whatever else he was talking about. He probably just went out into a forest one day and got his ass kicked by some little girl and was too embarrassed to tell people what actually happened, so they cooked up a story and dropped the 6 of us in the meat grinder. And if you got that reference, put it in the comments. Anyway, at this point, you're probably never gonna know what really happened, so yeah. But overall, I liked it. I think it's definitely worth checking out. It's only 6 episodes and they're 30 minutes each, so you can get through it pretty quickly. Well, I mean, assuming you have time to watch it pretty quickly. Otherwise, no, you won't get through it pretty quickly. Oh, one other thing, by the way, there's this part where one of the hired goons is saying, "One of you better survive this, because I still need to get paid." And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why you always ask for a deposit. But anyway, that's what I think of Yasuke. What do you think of Yasuke? Let me know down below, and while you're there, be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a suggestion if you don't mind.